Welcome to Adds Power. Today you join me as we look at the rear brake discs on my Audi A2 and see if we can swap them out, clean them up and generally get this thing working properly. So why am I changing my brake discs on this A2? Well, the biggest problem is they're dragging. So when I try and roll the car just by pushing it, you just can't move this thing. It's it's really kind of, there's a lot of resistance and you can feel it's coming from the back. You can hear them literally kind of grabbing. So I brought some new brake discs, Eurocar parts. So I bought some Ica discs, which are the cheaper end of the scale, but I thought, well, this is a light car, we'll give it a go. I've never used them before, but they should be decent enough. There's not a lot of braking being done at the back, so we'll give them a go. I'm going to clean all the caliper up, generally just give the thing a tidy up, make sure the handbrake's working properly, and just get the thing working again. So we'll get on with it. Here we go. So we've got the wheel off. You see I've jacked it on that point. I've left the jack there and then I've got the axle stand just onto the torsion bar, which is where the forums seem to agree it's where it should be. Now, let's just have a quick look round, shall we? This is the first time I've had this off, so get the microphone out of my tools. So first of all, this is the brake line. That's not looking too bad. That's nice and clean. Obviously a bit of dirt on it, but I'm quite happy with that. There's not a lot of rust there, which is fantastic. You've got the brake. This looks like an ABS sensor here. That's very nice. That's very good. I'm happy with that. You'd almost say it's had new lines. The hose is in good order. You can see it's had a new caliper. It says remanufactured there. So that was about 5 years ago. All the rubber boots look in good order, protecting the sliders. This is your handbrake lever, so I'm going to have to take the handbrake off. This is just like an Audi TT I used to have. And you pop that lever down, pop this ball out. There's the cable, and then that's free then to come off. And then you just remove, there's two bolts for the caliper carrier, this piece here. And then you take, there's two what we call slider pins, remove them. I'll clean those up. And you can see this disc, it's there's not a lot of meat on the pad. The disc is fairly old. I'm gonna just give this a wire brush down, just put a little bit of hammerite on it, just to tidy it up. But otherwise, it's in good order, really. There's not a lot wrong with this car. It's lovely. It's aluminium. I mean, look at this arch. There's just no rust. Just nothing. If that isn't the advantage of aluminium, I don't know what is. There's loads of dirt. I might just clean that out. The shock looks a little bit grubby, but that shouldn't really be doing that. But the exhaust looks in reasonable order. It's all just surface, just muck really. So I'm just going to give it all a wire brush down. We'll pop this screw off here. That gets the caliper, the disc off. We'll pop the caliper off, and then you'll join me as we start cleaning it up. You can see, I love to do this. I know it's, using good WD, but just clean it all off. I just like to, with brake lines and stuff, I always think if there's like mud, oh, don't knock the camera over. If there's mud caked on them, that's just going to cake moisture all around the lines. So you just want that gone. So whenever I get the wheel off, I'm doing a job like this, you can see I just like to get rid of it, get it all tidied up. It's an old shop rag. And it just gets it clean. So, once I start driving again over the winter, this is just going to fill up with mud and silt. like you wouldn't believe. But it's all pretty tidy. I mean, it's not... I was worried I was going to break off the bits of mud and then find, you know, massive rust areas, but no. We're not going full resto here, we're going adds power resto. But it's better than that. No, I went all northern then. That's what happens living up in Derbyshire. You end up talking like you're from Derbyshire. Just clean it all up. I mean, this back plate, let's get a bit of hammerite on. Get the old wire brush. Maybe get all this ming off. Notice I'm going down. You don't want to fling bits up into your eye. I will get some goggles once I'm doing this back plate here. There's a bit of corrosion here. I'm just gonna break that off, and then I'll just put a bit of WD on it. But right, anywho, let's get this caliper off. So it's a 15. It's one of these designs which is like a 15mm spanner, and then you have a 13mm socket. I don't like these designs. I don't know why Audi insists on doing this, because it's just crap. But we bought an Audi, so righty tighty lefty loosey. Something happened. You've got to be very, very careful with these, because you do not want to strip it. And in fact, I'm just going to put a little bit of WD on it. It can't hurt, can it? That's not having it. And this is stuck on the end. Marvellous. Alright, I'll let it work its magic for a bit and then you'll join me. We'll have another go. Okay, so after some brute force, because literally an ogre had tightened these up, I managed to get them off. Now you've got to be very careful with this type of thing, because these little bolts, when I take them out, I've got no head on them at all. I don't know why they do that. Awesome filming here, but sorry, arm in the way. They've got no depth on the hex, so if you're not insanely careful, you can round off the slider pin bolts, and then you are literally faced with, I think all you could do at that point is get a cutting disc and cut them off, which is obviously, you know, it's just, it turns the job from being quite a nice little DIY job into, you know, dangerous. I mean, cutting wheels are just horrible things, and you're getting bits everywhere, and it's just, you just don't want that. So just real lot of WD-40. You can see here I'm just resting the spanner, see there, just holding it, stopping it spinning. But horrible design. You know, most cars just have like one pin and it screws into the caliper. And you don't have any of this nonsense like Volkswagen seem to employ. But anyway, there's one. You see what I mean? Tight, there's no depth. So you can see there, I mean, I've been putting some force, but I've managed to protect the head. It was actually a 1/2 inch socket worked best, rather than I think it was the 13mm I originally said. And you'll see I had pure hex rather than the star type ones. And the hexes are better because they just grip the nut better, I find. There's less possibility of rounding it off, which is what you really don't want. Right, off camera, I'm going to get the other one off and we'll have a look at the caliper. Okay, both caliper bolts are now removed, and I'm just going to pop, see this little handbrake ball? See if I can do it with you watching. Let's pop it over. There we go. That's gone into there, which is not ideal. You just move it round to the side, there we go. That's your handbrake loose. So now, should be able to get this off. You'd think. Well, because it all looks a bit old, just going to tap it with the old hammer. Not too hard, so obviously don't want to damage the thing. You see why this is binding, it's just, I mean, it's still locked on to the caliper now, sorry, the disc now. That should be free. There we go. Coming off. There we go. Okay. So these pads are, I mean, look. You can see what the problem is here. It's all gummed up, all rusted up, all sticking. You know, this is why these pads, these would just fall off. They're all stuck. That's why this is binding. So we'll free all this off and then we'll clean it up with some sandpaper. Reassemble. So we finally got the caliper and the carrier off, and what a fight it was. You're dealing with bolts which look like this, and unfortunately the drive is okay, but just absolutely lathered in thread lock, which is all very nice until you try and get them off for, you know, to replace the discs. I had to take the shock absorber off to actually get access. I've never known that before in a car. So yet again, quality Volkswagen design. But not too bad. I mean, this car has done 135,000 miles, so you know it's a bit flaky. But we're going to get the old goggles on and just sort of get the wire brush on this and just tidy it up a bit. See, there's a bit off. Let's just pull that off. Don't want that, do we? Get rid of that. So we'll just give it a bit of a tidy up, and then we're going to look at this caliper. Just actually lather it in grease at the back. I think this lever's there's a bit of stiction in there, so we're just going to grease all that up, and then I'll show you. We'll push the piston back in. What I like to do is press the brake a few times in the car, push it out, wind it back in, push it out, and it just really gets it all moving freely. And then on the carrier itself, I mean, look at this thing. It looks like it's been done with a Titanic. So we're going to tidy that up. Again, wire brush it and just grease it up, make sure it's all moving freely. So I got the old wire brush out. Just got the goggles on. You need goggles for this sort of work, because it just, oh dear, just come off. So it's a bit rusty, isn't it? So just clean it up. The main thing is just get the worst of it off. We're not looking for resto here. We're just looking for nice and functional. And all this is really doing is just stopping rain and mud getting on the disc. So it's not going to know, a few bits of rust here and there. It's not going to really affect the car. But yeah, it's not in great shape, is it? I think it's well overdue. There's a little bit of hammerite. Oh, quality camera skills there. Just a bit of hammerite. It'll just clean it up a bit. Okay, looking good. Right, so I've given a quick coat of hammerite on this. I mean, it's not great, is it? But it's better than how it was. So just tidied it up a bit. I've put an absolute ton of penetrating oil on this handbrake lever mechanism just to try and get it moving more freely. And that seems to be moving quite nicely now. Springing back nicely. So I'm happy with that. And I've also while I brushed this down, this carrier, cleaned it all up. The pad surfaces here, cleaned them all up. The sliders are actually moving freely. Really nice. The boots are still intact, so I'm just going to leave them. There's nothing wrong with them. So it's now time to press in this piston. So I'm going to get my carrier caliper kit, which is this. I got this off eBay for, I don't know, it wasn't a lot of money, 15 quid, something like that. And what you do is basically just pick the size which sort of fits in here. See that one I've got first time there. Just pick one. You hear all this story, you need a special wind back kit. You don't. Just get one of these. Universal. Just plonk that on there like that. It's magnetic. And then you put this on this way, and then I'll put you in the tripod and you'll be able to watch me wind the thing back. Okay, so we'll start winding this thing back. So straight away it's quite stiff. This is probably because this caliper's hasn't moved for a long time. So what I'm doing now, this plate is pushing against the caliper, and then as I'm winding this thread, it's just pushing the piston back into the caliper. That's as far as that wants to go, which is a bit strange. I thought it would have gone further back than that. There we go. No, it's still going. I don't think this is quite the right tool fitting, but you can get different ones, so I might just try and put a different one in. Before I completely hash the piston. Let's try this one. That's not quite right. Probably going to eat my words now. I said, oh, you don't need a special wind back tool. Maybe you do. Maybe you do. Let's give that one a go. That one seems to be nearly there. You just wind this thing so it starts to put some tension on it. There we go, so that's moving in quite nicely now. And you just want to wind the piston all the way back in. You see it's actually twisting it as well. So it's really just cleaning it all up. I mean, you know, maybe the seals inside are getting a bit damaged, but I haven't really had any problems. So what I like to do, so I'll keep winding that back in right to the end. This has actually got a lot of travel. And then what I'll do is get in the car, push the brakes a few times. It'll push the piston back out. You need to make sure you don't obviously push it too far out. So you just you know, maybe 2 stabs on the brakes, and then you do this again, and it just makes sure it's moving freely. There we go. So that's wound back in now, all the way in. So I'm going to push the brakes in the car, and then we'll do that again. Okay, so you can see that piston's come right back out again now. Now I've pushed the brakes. So we're just going to repeat, and it just makes sure it's all free, because, you know, in operation, this piston's probably moving millimeters, if that, and you can end up sort of having the same bit of piston in the same place in the caliper, and it just, you know, it might. You see, this is now really, remember how hard it was initially to wind this piston back in. Now it's just going back with ease. So I know that it's much freer. And it's not gonna bind. And that's basically when the piston stays out and it doesn't retract freely when you let off the brakes, and it just binds the caliper to the disc, and you don't want that. So it's probably part of the reason these were binding. You know, this piston just seemed a bit sticky. I mean, hopefully I won't need to replace this caliper, because it's, you know, it's okay, it's a reman, but it's been done fairly recently, 5 years ago, so you'd expect that to have a bit more service life. Once we're round this back in, what we'll do is just clean up the face of the hub. Just make sure that the hub's nice and clean. It's still not quite. Trouble is with this, what I find is that you have to keep winding this. Sometimes it doesn't hold, so you end up having to wind this back out. It's a fiddly old job. In all honesty, I'm running out of time today. I'm probably just going to have to do one and leave the car, do the other side next week, because normally I say you need about an hour and a half to do one side, but this side's sort of taken 2 hours because everything's been lock solid. Access has been terrible. Okay, so that's right back in now. I'm happy with that. So what I'll do now is just give this face a bit of a clean up. So I've just got 180 grit paper. And this is just to make sure that the disc sits on this nicely. I've had cars before where I've changed the disc and a slight speck of dirt just nudged the disc out, and it's enough that the disc then is not sitting flat, so it's sort of, you get this kind of effect, and you get basic vibration through the brakes, which is stupidly annoying. So now just really make sure, clean this off, get it all nice. Just blowing out any dust. And we're ready now to install the new disc. So I've got my new discs. So they're Euro car parts cheapy Ikers. I think they were 17 quid for 2. So I thought, well, we'll give them a go. I've never used them before, but see what they're like. So first of all, I always check just by eye, just make sure they're the same. because you could end up assembling the whole thing and just find that it actually doesn't fit. That's about right, just by eye. That looks fine. So put them back to back. And the diameter is the same, which is perfect. So we've got the right discs. So now, I'm going to fit the disc, which is literally, just make sure, just blow that disc out. There's actually a bit of, they've still got a bit of oil on them, so we're going to have to clean the discs off. Just make sure that you get, there's no dirt in here or anything like that. I'm going to use my t-shirt, guys. I know, massive faux pas, but don't want any bits of dirt making the disc sit proud. So just line up the disc with the hole there. There's a little mounting hole, and I've put the screw somewhere. There it is. What a joy. Can't even see that. There we go. So I've lined the disc up with the hole, little screw hole. And you just put this back in. All this does is just hold the disc on when you take the wheel off, so you don't need to put thread lock in. Someone's put thread lock in here. I just, why you do that? Don't do it too tight, because if that shears off, you can't get your disc off, and it's not really doing anything other than holding the disc on. So that's fine. Wheel bearing's fine. That's actually not sat quite straight, and you see when the wheel's tight, it'll sit straight. That looks nice. So what I'll do next is put the offer the carrier up, install that. Goes like that. Put the caliper on, and we're there. So here we go. Here's a completed caliper. So torqued up these slider bolts here to 35 Newton meters, and the main carrier bolts to 65. Found those torques on online on the workshop forum for the A2. The key thing you've got to remember, you've got to have these little clips in. So you can just see them, little silver clips. So in the end, I actually use this file just to file the caliper carrier down, because these pads just weren't moving that freely. So slid it, filed it down just there, either side, and just allows the pads to move freely. And then there's little springs on the pads. You need to make sure they're sort of resting on the caliper. Used a bit of brake clean, just some Halford's brake cleaner. Just wiped off the face of the disc and the back, and we're done. So an absolute joy of a job that. I thought it'd be nice and simple. It wasn't, but I've cleaned up all around here, cleaned the brake pipe. Got this great little spike sort of screwdriver just to pick away bits of dirt. So just been through here, just cleaned it up a bit. I think ultimately what I want to do is just really get it all nice, but that's not for today. So I've just got to put the shock back, and then we're done. And then I think I've run out of time today, so what I'm going to do is leave the car parked, and I'm just going to put some penetrant on the other side, and then next weekend I'll do the other one, and then it's going for a cam belt next weekend. So I've got to get it fixed. So hopefully with some of this sort of WD penetrant on all the bolts, it should come apart better than it has. So it's taken me 2.5 hours to do this today, which is way longer. I would have expected to have done both in this time, but so just an update on some other stuff. So I've had the gear lever off, so I'll do a little quick vid on doing that. So it wasn't too hard to take off. You just unclip that, it's just a snap fit, and then there was a little kind of clip there, so just prise that away, and you just lift it off. So I'll do a little video on replacing the leather gaiter, and that's it really, guys. So tools absolutely everywhere, but one new brake disc, and the other one next week, and then this thing hopefully that fixes the kind of binding issue, and we're away. Well, I'll speak to you soon, and take care.